Poop with Jex, or Haley, and I am joined today with our longtime amazing Coven member, Converse. How are you, Converse?
I'm doing good.
Thank you for being here. And before we get started, I want to ask you what your pronouns are.
My pronouns are he, him.
Okay, so we are talking about a topic today that I'm super excited about because let me tell you, nobody is better to talk to you about the Scream franchise or really like any movie than Converse, because Converse is what we call a cinephile. How many movies do you have, Converse? Like own?
I think over 700.
That is like I can't even like imagine. I've seen your pictures of your collection, but 700 movies, like physical movies. Have you watched every single one of them, or is it more just like you collect them?
I haven't seen all of them yet.
Do you plan to do like a watch one day where you just watch like all 700?
I tried to one year, but then I got a headache after a week.
I could imagine. I mean, like, if let's say the average movie is like an hour and a half, 700 hours more, like probably more, because most movies are like, I can't do math. Why am I attempting to do math? So you and I feel like when you first came, we would always end up talking, and because you're so passionate about movies and entertainment, we always sort of lingered in the horror franchise. Have you always really liked horror movies? Is that your favorite genre?
I like coming of age, but I've always liked horror as well.
Yeah, and I feel like when we've talked about sort of like the entertainment side, I feel like horror sort of gets it's getting better, but it always had a really bad reputation in the like industry of acting as like it's the lesser than kind of genre because, you know, it's sometimes campy and whatever. And then whenever there's a movie that's like a psychological thriller, then it can be, you know, for an Oscar or whatever. But how do you feel? Do you feel like the horror genre stands up against, you know, action, against dramas and all those kind of pieces?
I would say yeah, because there are a lot of action movies that get made and they have the same problems as the horror ones.
Right. And I feel like, you know, do you feel like in the horror genre, though, there's sort of like, what would you say is like the weakest subset of the horror genre? That sort of is the one that everyone sort of poo-poos out. I feel like slashers are sort of the ones, right? Like the sort of gory ones, like are the ones that people are like, those are what makes horror gross and terrible.
Yeah, I feel like also like the Saw movies kind of tainted
Ruin
it.
stuff, right? And I think, you know, we've talked about this because I hate the Saw movies. I think the first one was great, but then the rest of them after, to me, just felt sort of like gore porn. And I know you say it's not, but to me it felt like it is because it just was nonsensical. It was just like they kept trying to outdo themselves on the violence, and I think it sullied the whole franchise in some ways. How do you feel about it?
Actually, they were torture porn.
Thank you. But they're not like, I mean, there's other movies in there that are like unspeakable. There's like, what is it called? House of a Thousand Cannibals or something? Cannibal House?
House of a Thousand Corpses.
No, not that. There's another one that's like notorious. That's horrible.
Cannibal Holocaust.
Yes, that one. I watched, I don't know, like 14 minutes of it, and I was like, absolutely not. This is disgusting, and it is not. It's for no reason. Like, I hate when the horror genre kind of lessens how good it can be by doing things that just are for a guttural reaction. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't like possession movies. And Converse made me watch. I hated that movie, The Conjuring. Oh my God. Oh my God. I hated The Conjuring so much. Have you seen all of them? All the Conjuring movies?
Yeah.
Do they get scarier?
I guess. So it's about the same, I guess.
Oh, I was watching with my mom because Converse had like literally paid me to watch it. And I was like, all right. So I watched it with my mom in Plymouth, and my mom and Converse, I don't know if you guys know this, they're like sort of friends because they talk through me about movies that I refuse to watch. Like she'll be like, has Converse watched anything recently that I should watch? And then I'll make a recommendation to Converse about it. And it's so funny because like I hate everything that she watches. My mom falls asleep to Demon Hunter movies and I don't even know. So Converse loves it though. They go back and forth. It's so funny. But I watched The Conjuring with my mom, and she falls asleep to The Conjuring. So she kept forgetting to warn me before something would happen, and I would shit myself. And I was like, goddamn Converse. This is a nightmare. I hated it. But let's talk about Scream because first of all, do you think it's the best slasher of all of the franchises?
My favorite is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you like it better than Scream?
I just feel that it was a classic when it came out, and then they made a lot more that they got progressively more stupid, but it had like a very loyal fan base.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the staples of the horror genre.
It is definitely one of the. I think that like the big three, would you say, is like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Scream? Would you call those like the big three?
No, I would put Halloween instead of Scream.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a little upset with you.
But I put Scream in fourth, I guess.
Fourth. Okay, so you'd still keep it in the top 5.
Yeah.
Okay, but the thing is like, I think maybe it's because I just feel like Scream, it has this very special sort of time. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe it's because when I watched Scream, it was such an influential age for me, but I felt like it was the first horror franchise that sort of like laughed at itself sometimes. Does that make any sense? It was very meta in its own, and before it became like a thing that they do meta shit in movies, you know? Do you feel that way with Scream?
Yeah. It's actually like the first one that like what they say is the first horror movie where the characters have seen other horror movies.
Right.
Yeah, so they knew like the rules and stuff.
And I think, and it also sort of felt like it was, you know, there was twists, there was turns, but it always had like a level of humor. And I think that's why you can watch it over and over and still laugh at Stu. Like, to me, he's one of the best villains Billy Loomis. So if you've never watched Scream, spoilers. And also trigger warning, just, you know, we are talking about horror movies with murder and mayhem, and it can relate to societal things. So just overall general trigger warning. But like Billy Loomis and Stu are the main killers in the first Scream movie. And the dynamic between the two of them is so special. But Stu, who's played by, what's his name? Willard?
Matthew Lillard.
Thank you, Lillard. I went Willard, Matthew. I combined the W of Matthew and the last name. But his humor that he brings to it the whole time, even like Courtney Cox, David Arquette, all of them bring this level of humor to their roles. And it was just such an engaging movie. And so like, what would you say for the first movie? Let's talk about the first movie. What would you say is sort of your favorite aspects of it? What do you think made it different? And what do you think made it like a classic?
Well, when I first watched it, I was about 7 or 8.
I was like 5, yeah.
my grandma's house because my aunt was watching it.
Yeah. Did she know how graphic it was going to be?
Yeah, because when I was a kid, I was really into horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she let you watch Scream at like 8?
Yeah, I think I was watching it with the whole family.
Oh my God. So when I was 5, we were at my family friend's house, and all the grown-up kids were watching, and I was the youngest one there. And I ran to my dad and said, "Can I watch the movie Scream?" And he just assumed it sounded like a cartoon. So he's like, "Yeah, sure." I was 5, and I watched Drew Barrymore get stabbed in the heart. And I was like, oh, I hope this doesn't awaken thing. I mean, watching Billy Loomis, I was like in love. I mean, I was like, oh God, this is bad. So you watched it when you were 8, which is also super young. So what was your first sort of reaction to it?
When I first watched it, I really liked it. And back then, I didn't know it was supposed to be satirical. I just thought it was a good horror movie.
Right.
Yeah,
and then after you've watched it now, what is your interpretation of it?
I still really like it. I like all the in jokes they make at the other horror movies that came before it.
Right. They even watch other horror movies within the movie, which was also unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that's a great thing your brother just mentioned, that Drew Barrymore was billed as the main. This was so genius. She was a rising star. She was like everywhere, and they billed her as in the main cast. She was on every poster, and they killed her right away, which I thought was genius. And I think that she has one of the most iconic roles in the whole series, even though she died in like the first 10 minutes, which is amazing. And then did you know about like the casting and everything for Scream, like how they did that? Because I did a little research.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah,
Share it with everyone. I'm sure you know more than I do.
Well, Drew Barrymore was originally cast to play a Sidney Prescott,
which is,
but then she,
right, Nev Campbell.
But then she opted to play the opening kill just because it would like subvert the audience's expectations of what to expect.
Absolutely, which was such a good idea. Do you also know that Drew Barrymore, they gave her a live phone and she kept repeatedly calling 911 and screaming, and the police actually showed up and was like, what is going on? They're like, we're filming a movie, sorry. And they didn't realize they gave her a real landline and not a prop phone, which I think is kind of hilarious because she was, screaming. If you guys have seen the movie, she's like legitimately screaming for like once she sees her boyfriend Steve, right? What's his name?
Yeah, Steve.
Steve. I mean, she just screams for the rest of the time. So they cast Nev Campbell as Sidney Prescott, which I can't even picture anybody else being Sidney Prescott. Like, I loved her in that role, and she's one of the what do they call them? The Survivor
Final
girls? Final girls, right? She has that final girl energy. But I also, Courtney Cox. Wouldn't she technically be like a final girl too?
Yeah.
Because they both made it, right? Well, I haven't seen the new one. Don't spoil anything. I don't know what happens in the new one. So what is also some aspects of the first Scream that you feel like makes it really special or unique?
Well, at the time, all the movie studios were trying to make timeless movies, but with Scream, they just kept it, or they made references to like the 90s that would make it only relevant in that era. So it kind of set it apart from the other movies that were coming out.
Right, like they weren't trying to compete with everything else. They wanted it to feel distinctly different. And another little tidbit is that you guys know the Scary Movie franchise, right? Like obviously, Scream was originally going to be called Scary Movie. And then they scrapped it. And then I think they had a couple different choices for the name, and they landed on Scream I think towards the end, like before it was about to premiere, they finally said like it's going to be called Scream. And then Scary Movie, which parodies Scream, along with other movies as Scary Movie, along with other horror movies too. They named that Scary Movie, which I thought was so clever that they used like the recycled, name that they didn't go with. So share more. I feel like you have so many factoids that I would love to learn about for the first movie or any of the movies.
Oh, yeah, I have some. They leave a lot of clues as to who the killers are throughout the movie. So if you rewatch it, you'll be able to pick up on them.
Which is the one that you think of? Because I think of a specific moment, and it was so well acted. But between Billy Loomis and Stu, and they're sitting, and like Rose McGowan and Nev Campbell, and then they're all sitting near, I think it's like a fountain or something, and they're like, and you can see that when Sue is sort of talking and engaging about how a man has to be the one to do it because like you need to have a certain level of strength bullshit. And then he's talking about how the different knives, and Billy Loomis, you'll see over Nev Campbell's shoulder, shoots him a look that's like, stop it, cut it out. And I never noticed it until like because I'm so focused on Nev Campbell because she's, you know, she draws you in. She's so beautiful. She's going through so much. You're watching her that you don't even see him over the shoulder go like, cut it out. And I've never noticed that, which I absolutely love that. What's another little moment that you can notice that they're clearly communicating that they're the bad guys?
Well, there's a moment when Ghostface is attacking Sydney and she hits him. He makes a sound. And then later in the movie, Tatum is hitting Stu, and then he says he says easy, and it's the same sound from that Ghostface made.
Oh my God, I don't even know if I ever noticed that. Oh, I remember when she first hits him and he grunts, and I knew like right away that it was obviously a man. And like I feel like it's hard for me because I've seen the movie so many times that like you almost pick up on mannerisms too of Ghostface. And do you know the history of the mask of Ghostface and how they landed on that mask and everything?
Oh yeah.
Please share with everybody. It's such a cool thing.
So they were doing like they're trying to find the ghost the mask because in the script it just says ghost mask, and they're and they're trying to the special effects guys were like drawing like different sketches of all the different masks they were coming up with, and they all look like really weird,
super weird.
Yeah.
And I feel like they find the official ghost mask from one store in the middle of Bumble nowhere, and they were the only ones who produced that Ghostface mask at the time, and they found it and they were like, we love this. And I'm pretty sure that every mask that's ever been produced pays a royalty to that original mask shop. I think it's in Texas. I want to say Texas, but it was a remote. Does that sound right to you? Texas? I don't know if it was Texas.
I heard a different story.
Oh wait, tell me what you've heard. That's what I heard.
I heard it on a documentary about Scream.
Yeah.
And they're saying that during a location scout, like the mask was just in one of the rooms.
Oh, and I heard a totally different story.
And they asked if they could use it or take it because they liked the way it looked. And they found the company. Mm-hmm. And all the company asked for was like their company name in the credits and $100.
Okay, so so that sounds like a kind of like a combination of what I had heard, and then I read something on IMDb, and I feel like now they conflated. I feel like yours is probably the most right, but it was made by one shop that like it wasn't like a mass produced mask at the time, which I think is really cool, and they really liked the way it looked. And the Ghostface mask is like the whole thing. Like that was like as synonymous as, you know, that the mask is a William Shatner mask in Halloween. Did you know that?
Yeah.
I didn't know if anyone know that. Sorry. Whenever we talk about masks, I always think it's fascinating how the horror franchise will come up with which mask works. And like Ghostface, I can't even picture a different mask, and it feels like so influential. And I mean, I wore that mask when I was in like 4th grade for Halloween. Like I love that they went with that overall look and that vibe, and that it's sort of not really a scary mask. Do you know what I mean? Like it's really not like a weird, at least I don't think it would be. Like if I saw that in a store, there's much gruesomer and scarier masks, but somehow it just feels like they chose right, and I love that for them. So for the first movie, we sort of unveil, like a lot of stuff happens in the first movie that we, you know, learn and delve into. And then we go into the second movie. Do you want to share a little bit about the second movie? Because that one, we can also rank the movies, and then we can definitely I like the second one, and then I think the third one is weeks off. But let's go into the second one. So tell us about the second one a little bit.
Yeah, I actually heard that when the writer sold the script for the first one, he included the on the treatment for the sequel at the end.
Oh, I didn't know that. So he had already planned that it might do well and there would be a second one?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I heard of that.
That is pretty cool. So why don't you give us like a kind of a rundown? So we have Nev Campbell, Sidney Prescott, the main character in the first one. There's a big. By the way, did you hear about how they filmed these, like the ending of the climax of the first movie, the house party, that I think they filmed every single day for, what was it, like 13 days straight or something like that, and that the main cast would like fall asleep on each other's shoulders because they were so exhausted, because they had to bang out every single scene of that house party in like a very short amount of time. I love that too, because they were also invested. Wait, before we go to the second one, most epic kill of the first movie, and then we'll go to the second one.
It has to be the garage door opening or killing.
So good. So Tatum, played by Rose McGowan, gets moited in a doggy door, which I also love the little tidbit that Rose McGowan actually could fit through the doggy door. So when they were filming it, they had to make the doggy door even smaller for her so that it even looked like she couldn't get out, because the one that was initially put in, she could actually squeeze through. And I was like, that's kind of funny too, that like they had to make it so that it was believable that she really got stuck, which I love too. But that was the moment for me of the first film that I was like blown away. I was like, holy smokes, wow, that's so inventive and horrifying and bonkers. So then we get to the second one. So tell us about the second one.
So the second one, I think it takes place 2 years after the first one, and Sydney's now in college with Randy. Yeah. And during a advanced screening of the movie Stab, two students at her college are killed. Yeah. And
wasn't
then,
it Jada Pinkett Smith?
Yeah, and Omar Epps, who
I remember that. Yeah. That was fun. That, and her scream so also another thing I love about it is that the movie becomes, I should have worn my Stab shirt now. Now I regret it. I should have put it on my chair. I'll show it at the end of this. I'll show it after the podcast. But Converse got me a Stab shirt, which is like amazing. And it sort of becomes a movie inception, because what ends up happening is I'm blanking on Courtney Cox's character's name for some reason. Weather.
Gale Weathers.
Gale Weathers. I was like, I could not think of her first name. I just kept thinking Courtney in my head. Gale Weathers writes a movie about the first Scream movie. So she creates the first parody, not a funny parody, but the first remake, if you will, of what actually the true events that weren't really true. It's like such a great meta, but the Stab franchise gets created in the franchise that is created in our reality of Scream, which I just love how funny that is. And during the first portion of Scream 2, Jada Pinkett Smith, which the Scary Movies made so much fun of, gets murdered in front of a movie theater filled with people watching the Stab movie. And she lets out this like enormous scream, and she falls backwards in this super dramatic moment. And then we go to Sydney, who's now in college. So take us away. Where are we now in the world?
So she's in college and with Randy, and yeah, it's just about them trying to figure out who the killer is and trying to avoid being killed while she's being hounded by the press and Cotton Weary, who wants to exposure, basically. So,
well, I know who Cotton Weary is, but why don't you tell?
Cotton Weary was the in the first movie, he was arrested for killing Sydney's mother. Right. And at the end, it was revealed that it was actually Billy and Stu.
Right. So the second movie, what I appreciate about it, and I want to know if you appreciate it too, it gives it like, so we learn a lot in the first movie, but this one sort of fleshed out Sydney's mom's story so that we kind of understand a little bit more about Sydney's mom's background and what kind of drove Billy and Sue to do the heinous acts that he did. They did to her. And then we find out at the end of the movie, who done it, Converse? Tell him.
Oh, Scream 2. the killer ended up being one of her classmates named Mickey.
Right.
Yeah. And I didn't really like him being the killer just because he wasn't in the movie that much.
I agree. I actually
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
I actually timed it when I rewatched it, and he only had like 16 minutes of screen time.
Wow. Wow, that's really small. But it wasn't just him.
Oh, yeah, and it was on Debbie Salt,
Who was da da da.
who was actually Billy's mother.
Right. So what I appreciate about the second one, and I didn't even realize he was in it for so little. I don't think they needed him.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I feel like it's slightly weaker than the first Scream, because they have these two characters. So the bad guys in the second movie turn out to be Billy Loomis, who's the bad guy in the first movie's mother, who is sort of on a revenge arc. She's kind of a Looney Tunes. I don't even know how she can, make sense of why she's doing what she did. But so she's sort of she makes sense in a way, like her story arc. But then she basically I don't even remember his name. What's his name again?
Mickey.
Mickey. She basically uses Mickey. I can't explain it. I don't think he was necessary. I think that they could have pulled off the story with just her doing it. I think maybe they thought it wouldn't be believable that a woman, because they made the joke in the first movie that a woman could kill like a man could kill. I don't know. But for me, I just feel like that was the weakest point, is that he was just kind of they kind of globbed him on to the story, and he had no real reason to be. He did the major thing with a horror movie is you want if you're enjoying a movie, there should be some kind of motivation, right? Like, why are they doing it? Because it's the why that will keep you wanting to watch the movie. Like, why are they doing this? Because that's what humans do. We try to make sense of the nonsensical, right? So Mickey felt like nonsense, and I didn't like that he was in it. But I did like that it was Billy Loomis's mom. I thought that was interesting and engaging. So what would be your favorite kill from Scream 2?
I really liked Sarah Michelle Gellar's death.
Thank you. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have a factoid about Sarah Michelle Gellar's death in the movie. So Sarah Michelle Gellar was in the throes of filming Buffy. And during her scene, she's in a sorority, and the killer is coming for her in the gigantic mansion of a sorority house. And what I appreciate, my favorite factoid, is that she is running and she's scared, but during the filming, they had to keep telling Sarah Michelle Gellar to run not like a superhero, to tone it down and run like you're actually afraid for your life, because she kept falling back into her Buffy training of fighting back and running like a superhero. So I love that factoid, but I also watch it thinking like it's Buffy the whole time. So I'm like, this is make-believe. But I do like her kill. And I also have to say that I think Randy's kill was surprising. I was pretty taken aback, because Randy was very important in the first movie. And Randy was the sort of like archetype in the horror franchise of like the sort of geeky or nerdy or knowledgeable one. He was the prototype that he was sort of in love with Sidney Prescott, but she didn't really feel the same way. And he survived because he was a virgin. Like all of that narrative that is sort of been globbed onto so many other franchises now. And they killed him off in the second one in like a really kind of surprisingly anticlimactic way for him being so influential to the story. So how do you feel about them doing that? Do you think that was sort of the same homage to like Drew Barrymore getting murdered really quickly and kind of like abruptly? Do you think that's what they were going for?
Kind of, maybe, but yeah. I didn't really like that scene just because it didn't make sense for him to die that way. Just because they all he had to do was stay out in the open, but he stood next to the news van.
I know, and that was the other thing, is that I feel like Randy, he died right in the open. So basically what happens is Randy's on the phone with the killer, and they think that they're like kind of trying to lure him out and find, because cell phones weren't really prevalent back then. So they're like, we have to find another person on their phone. Can you imagine? This is the reality, that they're like, who has a cell phone this day of age? Nobody has a cell phone this day of age. So they're looking for the other person on the cell phone, and he's walking around in a gigantic open college field. And he just happens to walk next to a Gale Weathers like news reporter van, and the killer happens to be in there, and he pulls him in and he kills him in there. And I have to agree with you, Converse. I think that like it was a little bit of a weak spot for such an important character to be killed like that. I thought it was a little weak. But that's why I think Scream 2, which is good, is not like exceptional. Do you know what I mean? Like the first one was somehow exceptional. We feel like Mickey was just beat crazy, and he used Billy's mom as a puppet. I agree with that too. Do you agree with that like Mickey already had that sort of killer in him, and that they had a mutual using of each other, like Billy's mom used Mickey and Mickey used Billy's mom?
Yeah, because they said they found in a chat room for serial killers.
Yeah, right. Oh,
and,
I forgot about that. Oh my God, you're right. That did happen.
And Debbie Salt was basically his financier,
right?
Tuition and stuff.
Right, which again, like, can you I just think it's funny that like so much of this was so early on in like the technological boom that there was a chat room for serial killers. I mean, it was the wild, wild west of the internet, right? So I think it's just sort of funny how that all transpired. It's crazy how Cece and Sydney never share a scene together. Is that true?
Yeah, I think she's only in that one scene where she gets killed. Oh, and in the classroom scene in the beginning.
Wow, that's true. And honestly, it's funny because whenever I think of Final Girls, I mean, obviously there's Jamie Lee Curtis, there's Neve Campbell, but you know, obviously Buffy and Sarah Michelle Gellar is like an OG Final Girl. So it was sort of fun to see Sarah Michelle Gellar play like a victim and do everything nonsensical, like run up the stairs. Again, there was a lot of things in this movie that I think detracted from the beauty of the first movie, where I feel like you said, in the first movie, the characters knew the rules and they were privy to how to survive, right? And then in this one, everyone does the wrong thing. Randy walks next to a car in the middle of an open field. He could have just stood still, you know, like in the open. Cece is standing right next to the front door of her sorority, gigantic mansion. I mean, guys, it was like a giant mansion. She runs up the stairs. That was another thing that was just like really silly, and it kind of detracts from what I think. Yeah, the chat rooms were just another level of that, but I do feel like that was sort of one of the things that I didn't like as much for Scream 2. But did you like that it was Billy Loomis's mom? Like, did you like that aspect of it?
Going back to the running up the stairs scene.
Yeah.
In all the scenes where they run up the stairs, they always lock the front door before, so they try the door, but it's locked, so they have to run up the stairs.
She does try the front door?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but she had just locked it.
So why can't she unlock it and run out the front door?
Because there's no time, because the killer's like in the middle of getting up.
You know, here's the thing. I don't know. I just feel like you're telling me in a mansion that size, there's no back door. You know, I just feel like there was too many rooms it didn't make sense. Like, you know, I think that the beauty of a good horror movie, and they need to keep making these this way, is that you shouldn't have to say, why didn't they do that, right? It should be that they really do try everything that you would do in a survival instinct. Like, I actually think we're going to get to Scream 4, but I do feel like Scream 4 blows Scream 2 and 3 out of the water. I haven't not seen Scream 5. I'm super excited. Don't spoil anything. But Scream 4, to me, we're going to go back to this, but it proves that, like, if you would do in a survival instinct without it being like detracting in any way. So did you like Billy Loomis's mom as the killer?
Oh yeah, I did, but I also didn't make sense because if Sydney saw like her running around, she would have knew it was Billy's mom like immediately. So it didn't make sense.
Did she know Billy's mom in the first movie? Did she ever mention she knew her?
Oh yeah, in the second one, when she shows herself, the first thing she says is Mrs. Loomis.
You're right. And then she also said, and then didn't Billy Loomis's mom say that she lost a ton of weight and got surgery
Yeah.
to change her appearance slightly? You're absolutely right. So that is actually a major flaw overall. I kind of get it. Like, I sort of feel like with everything that went on with Sydney and all the trauma she endured, I wouldn't be surprised that she sort of blotted out everything to do with Billy and his mom, everything out of her mind because she was so traumatized. I kind of can understand. And she did get augmentative surgery and lost weight and did things like that. So I sort of, but you're kind of right. Like, she probably would have picked up on it because Billy Loomis's mom was parading around as a news reporter.
Yeah.
And was in everyone's face. Like, she wasn't lurking in the shadows. She was up in everyone's face. Before we move on to Scream 3, what did you think about the I Think I Love You song, the weird singing part of Scream 2 where Sydney's current boyfriend jumps on the table and starts singing in the middle of the cafeteria? What did you feel about that scene?
I didn't mind it because I think it was supposed to be like a reference to Top Gun.
You're right. But
Yeah.
like, did you think that it was sort of, I kind of think that it was supposed to be funny, I feel like. And I think I always kind of cringe when I watch it because I'm like, I think they were trying to go for the humor that they magically created in the first one and that they maybe weren't able to quite get in the second one.
Yeah.
Do you feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I heard the actors like their biggest complaint was that they didn't want to hear the song all day.
Oh God, I could imagine. I could imagine. But I think Scream 2 was a solid sequel. Would you say, like, because a lot of sequels flop, like they're nowhere near as good as the first one. Would you say that it was a pretty solid sequel? Not as good as the first, but it was solid.
Yeah, I think so because this used to be like ranked last in my list.
Yeah.
But after I rewatched it, it's moved up.
Yeah. So before we go on to Scream 3, what are your thoughts with Gail being chased by Ghostface in the recording studio? What did you think of that scene?
I really like that scene, just especially because you have like the like the windows where you can't hear through, and yeah, and
it's
she has to watch. Yeah, she has to watch a Dewey get stabbed right in front of her.
I think that it created a lot of like tension, which I think, you know, when you are getting stalked by a killer, it should create a lot of tension, and it did. I think it really excelled in that department of like creating. I think that there was moments in Scream 2 that, like with Randy's death, that had no tension. Like it was just sort of weaker. But then you had, you know, Gail watching Dewey, like you said, get stabbed, get through the window, and they can't hear each other. And I thought that was a great scene for Scream 2. So Scream 3 to me is the worst. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you give us a little background on Scream 3?
So it's kind of weird with Scream 3 because it's only set 4 years after the first one, but I feel like they're trying to write like for Nev, like as if Sydney was Nev Campbell's actual age.
Sydney was Nev Campbell. You mean they were trying to make it so that her age matched the character?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
They're trying to make Sydney be actual, like how old Nev Campbell was.
So you think they prematurely aged her? They made her seem a little bit too mature, kind of thing?
Yeah, because in the movie she's only supposed to be 21.
What? How old was she in real life at the time?
27?
Yeah. Whoa, Converse, you just dropped a bomb. I'm sorry. I legitimately thought in the movie she was supposed to be. Well, I think, you know what? Can I be honest with you? I'm kind of glad I didn't know she was supposed to be 21 because she does not act like a 21-year-old. And you could say that it was from the trauma that she prematurely aged, and that's very well and fair. But definitely agree with you. They should have just said either, like, they shouldn't even brought up a time frame, maybe. Like, I don't know. They could have left it kind of ambiguous. But yeah, definitely gave me late 20s vibes. So give us a rundown on sort of, because Scream 3 is the weakest of the franchise. So why don't you tell us what the plot of it was and how it's sort of laid out?
Yeah, so the plot of the movie is that in Hollywood they're trying to make a Stab 3,
Hmm.
and Cotton Weary had just done a cameo as himself for the opening, I think.
Yeah.
And on his way home from the shoot, he gets a call from Ghostface saying that he's in his apartment with his girlfriend, and
Girlfriend. Yeah.
Cotton has to rush home to save her.
Right. And then Cotton also gets murdered in the first
Mhm.
scene, which I appreciate that in every Scream, the opening scene is supposed to sort of surprise you in some way. It's supposed to be where either you're shocked that the person who died, or the way and manner that they die is shocking. And in this case, we've seen Cotton Wary in the first movie and in the second movie. He's now become very successful. He's sort of been able to market his, honestly kind of sad story of being, misrepresented and being told and going to jail for a crime he didn't commit. So now he's sort of monopolizing on that in a way, if you will. And now he gets murdered in the first like 10 minutes of the movie. So I think that was a good thing. But for me, Scream 3 just didn't have, it was too campy. The whole thing was camp. Do you kind of
Mhm.
agree with that? Like, so they're trying to film Scream 3, Stab 3, sorry, which is the movie within the movie, right?
Yeah.
And they cast, a Sydney, they cast a Gail Weathers, they cast a Dewey, and you kind of watch the casted of Stab movies against our Scream heroes, and it's just, to me, it was so campy, like the whole
Mhm.
time. I just did not. It was super super silly, and I don't know what exactly about it, but it just. And the
Oh, yeah.
voice changer comes into effect
Mhm.
too. Yes, the voice changer. So, what do you feel about Scream 3?
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I actually liked this one like the most, just because
Your brother
it
said the same thing.
yeah it was it was more funny than the others,
Yes,
and
much
yeah,
funnier. Yeah, much campier. Yeah.
yeah, and there's a reason why that happened.
Why?
It's because when Scream when Scream 3 was in pre-production, on the Columbine High tragedy took place,
Mm-hmm.
and it caused the story to change because Matthew Lillard like said he was supposed to come back as Stu, and he was going to be the killer who was orchestrating the entire thing from from his prison cell, and he was getting he was getting high school students to do the killings. And
Oh,
After Columbine, they had to change that immediately.
Converse, I
And
did not know that. Oh
yeah,
my gosh. Whoa. So
yeah,
the original plot of Scream 3 was going to be Stu, who, how would he have survived? How he died? Well, I guess we're made to believe he died. I mean, he gets stabbed by Billy because they, stab each other,
yeah.
whatever. And then she throws a TV and he gets electrocuted. I mean, we never hear in the first, or we never hear in the second movie that Sue is in prison. How were we were supposed to believe that she never would have mentioned that Sue survived? I'm so
Yeah.
confused. So he was going to be in prison in the Scream 3 and
Hmm.
orchestrating this with high school students being the killer?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my
And because that
god.
happened, that's also the reason why they chose to rely on comedy more than
Oh,
the
to lighten it.
scares.
Oh,
Yeah.
that actually shines a whole new light on Scream 3, because I always found it to be the weakest.
Hmm.
And it was so much, they were trying so hard to be funny. And there was like, it really wasn't even hit for me. It didn't hit, nothing hit on funny, like nothing. It was campy and tropey, but nothing actually made me laugh. Like, I actually think many more times was I laughing in the first movie. Like the final scene with Stu and the "you hit me with the phone." I mean, I still laugh at that scene
Hmm.
every single time, which he improved, which I love. But I did not like the campiness of Scream 3. But now that I know that it was because of the timing of Columbine, makes so much more sense why they made it so funny and kind of silly and not as good in my. I still don't think it's very good though. Yeah,
Hmm.
I still think it's very
But
good.
yeah, and
Yeah.
uh, they also changed the writer because
Oh, did they?
yeah, because he was really busy with other stuff.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, he has some good ideas, I thought, from what I've heard.
So I mean, like, I think one of the good ideas that they incorporated is that the technology of the voice changers from the first movie to the third movie had progressed, and
Yeah,
we saw the ghost face being able to not only change their voice to the really amazing Ghostface actor voice, which is phenomenal, but we actually also got to see him use the voice changer to sound like our main characters. And that's
yeah,
how Con Weary's girlfriend was. If you watch the movie, she thought that Cotton was there to kill her because when she was on the phone with Ghostface, it sounded like Cotton. So I think that that was a nice touch to it. But like, I just did not, I think there was just like no magic to it. Does that make any sense? Like, I didn't find any part of it to be, like, if that was the first Scream, I don't think it would have went anywhere. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, if that was the first vibe of the first movie, it would not have gone anywhere. Does that make any sense? Um, so, and then who are the killers in the Scream 3, if you want to share with us?
Yeah. At the end of the movie, it's revealed that it's uh,
Yeah.
a Sydney's long lost brother.
Which again,
Yeah.
I hate that kind of the long lost brother after the
Mhm.
long lost mother. It just, and he became a director who was associated with the Stab movies, and like, I just felt like it was so on the nose. I also feel like constantly redigging up the whole narrative of like Sidney Prescott's mom is this, like, I didn't think that the third one rang. And then when we're gonna pivot, because I would love to talk about the Scream 4. I have not seen Scream 5, so I want to just ask you a couple questions when we get to that. But I want to talk about Scream 4 because Scream 4 to me is the strongest of everyone other than the first Scream, and even then, I think it's close. I love Scream 4. How do you feel about Scream 4?
Yeah, I really like it. I actually got to see it on opening night when it came out.
Did you really?
Yeah,
How was everyone's response on opening night? Did they like it?
yeah, it was really good.
They were cheering and
They
stuff?
yeah they screamed at the right spots and they laughed at the right spots, so it was
Oh,
great.
good. Oh, I love to hear that because I think Scream 4 was like amazing. I was shocked because when you're doing when you are in a movie franchise for as long as Scream is, and
Hmm.
for they've already done 3, right? You can't imagine that Scream 4 is possibly going to be good. And then all of a sudden it's like great. So give us a little bit of the lowdown on what Scream 4 is about.
Oh yeah, so it's set 10 years after three, I think, and it's and Sydney returns to Woodsboro because she's written a book and it's having her book tour is stopping in Woodsboro.
Right.
And
Out of the darkness. Out of the
yeah.
darkness. Yeah. That's her book name.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And the night before, two teenagers are were murdered.
While watching the Stab movies,
Yeah.
which again, if we're talking about meta, this movie hits meta beautifully. The first two girls, first of all, the intro to Scream 4 is it's so clever, it's so good.
Mhm.
So we're watching two girls sitting on a couch, and then we find out that it's like two girls watching from talking about the Stab movies, and then that's not real either. And then we zoom out again, and then it's our two girls actually watching, and then it just it hits the nail on the head for me for funny and witty and super meta and super fourth wall breaking, but it was done excellently. Like, it just is so sensational. So tell us about like what happens in Scream 4, like an overview of sort of what Scream 4, the killers, all that stuff.
Yeah. So, what they explain in the movie is that they believe it's people trying to make a real life remake of the events that happened in Scream.
Right. And it adds in, now that we're 10 years from the third movie, now we get technology that is, it's still outdated, but it's from where we are now, but it's more in tune with, you know, they bring in the whole, like, I think these killers are recording this and releasing this, and that adds a new layer of what the hell is happening. So tell us also about who the two killers are, because I love the choice for the two killers so much. I think it's fantastic. Who are the two killers in the fourth movie?
So the two killers are revealed to be Sydney's cousin Jill and her friend Robbie, who's like I'm a horror film fanatic.
Isn't it her? It's her niece, not her cousin, right? Niece?
No, it's her cousin. It's her cousin.
No, it's her sister. Yeah, you're right. It's her mom's sister's daughter. You're right. She's not the aunt. You're right. So what I love about this is that it's the first time that I feel like the story of a relative felt real. Like, it felt like it was, like, I can't explain it, but finding out that Sydney has a long lost brother felt so tropey in the third movie. But this is a character that we, unbeknownst to us, has kind of always existed in the reality of Scream. Like, Sydney's mom has a sister, so Sydney's aunt had a daughter, they're cousins. Like, that felt like it made total sense. It wasn't a long lost relative that we somehow never heard about. It was like, this could exist in this world, right? Like a cousin. Okay, fine. I also loved that not only was the cousin who's played by Emma Roberts, not only does she seems more of like the most convincing, other than Billy Loomis and Stu. Maybe because she's a better actress, I don't really know. Maybe she had better writing, but I loved that. What's the character's name that's supposed to be like Randy's character? I'm blanking on his name.
Charlie, there's two of them. Charlie and Robbie.
Well, okay, what's the name of Macaulay Culkin's little brother? That's Charlie. The bad guy, Charlie. Yeah. So what I love is we have two sort of that nerdy, geeky archetype, and one of them is a bad guy, and he's like, and Randy finally gets the girl, and then she kills him. And I thought that was just such it was such a good callback to all the things that we like, with Emma Roberts' character having a breakup with like the sort of the handsome guy who we all kind of pin as the killer because that's what we saw with Billy Loomis. And like, I just love that it turned the entire narrative of Sydney being the final girl for 3 movies, sort of living this life like it's her life, and then we see we think we're watching a parallel life happening, right, with her cousin. What's her cousin's name again?
Jill.
Jill, thank you. We think we're watching a parallel life with Jill, and then all of a sudden our final girl, which we think is going to be Jill, she is the bad guy, and I love that. What's your favorite aspect of Scream 4? What's your favorite kill from Scream 4?
I really like that in Scream 4 they're playing by the rules of the remake as opposed to just a regular horror movie.
Right, which is great.
And also really like that it was funnier, I feel like, than Scream 3, and they had a whole bunch of very funny actors in the parts.
Yes, I agree. Do you think that that's what Scream 3 was maybe lacking, other than the fact that we just found out that they had to like totally flip the script literally? But do you think that the acting was just better? Like, what made it so that it was so much funnier? Like, Scream 4 was a complete callback to the first Scream. Do you feel that way too? Like the level of humor and the dark humor involved.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was what the magic was of Scream 4?
Yeah, and I feel like with Scream 4, their hearts were in it more, because I heard that for Scream 3, Neve Campbell only wanted to work 3 weeks, and that's why she's not in the movie as much.
I didn't know that either. Did she not want to do the remake? Why was she only available for 3 weeks?
Oh, that was for Scream 3. She only wanted to Yeah.
I was gonna say, I was like, she was in a lot of Scream 4. I feel like Scream 4 was, I think, first of all, I also love about Scream 4 is we watch Nev Campbell, who, like, will not tolerate bullshit anymore. Like, I love that she always was sort of running away in the first 3 movies. She was sort of, we sort of saw in the first movie, she was always running away. We saw her stand up for herself with a gun towards Billy. Like, we saw her stab Billy. We saw her hurt Stu. Like, but she was running, right? She was never really running towards them. It sort of was like, we see in the second movie, right? We see there's the car crash scene in that's the second movie, right? Where she has to crawl across the killer. And then he's unconscious and she has to crawl across the killer because the doors are jammed. They got into a car accident and she hesitates to take the mask off. See, Scream 4, Nev Campbell would have shanked him in the throat. Like, she hesitates in the second movie to take his mask off. And in the third movie, honestly, it was just such a weak movie that I don't even really feel like there's anything that I can even really, touch upon for the third movie. But in the fourth movie, we see Sidney Prescott chasing Ghostface when Jill's neighbor, who is obviously like a beautiful high school girl, is getting murdered. Sidney Prescott runs next door. Did you notice that shift in Scream 4 as well?
Yeah, I really like that scene. And then she was able to she was able to easily beat a ghost face.
Right. Like, you watch that all those years of running and learning how to defend herself and whatever, we kind of get to see her in action again, but in a totally new way. Like, she is not sort of a victim anymore. And that's what her whole story is supposed to be, like, out of darkness. She's not a victim. Her manager says, you are a victim for life. Like, and then Sydney was like, did you read my book? And that's because Sydney isn't a victim anymore. She's out of darkness. She's not in that. And I love that we see that shift of Sydney chasing Ghostface, and Ghostface is on the run now, which I love. I also want to know, what did you think of the dynamic of having sort of like, they make fun of themselves a lot again. Did you like that the sort of like, when in the first opening scene where the two real girls, and the Ghostface is like, oh yeah, a tall, beautiful blonde with big boobs, you're gonna die in the first act. And she's like, I have a 4.3 GPA, you asshole. Like, did you like that they kept the nods towards what we saw originally? Like that sort of humor again?
Yeah. When I first watched it, I was with my brother and our friend, and after our friend was saying that she liked that they were able to make fun of themselves, and I had to tell them that, like, all the movies were supposed to be doing that,
right? And we were sorely missing that in the third one, for sure.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on when Jill, at the end, Jill thinks she's conquered everything? She creates this whole story. We're at the after party and everyone's dead now, or presumably she thinks everyone's dead. She thinks she killed Sydney. She finally is going to be the star. She's going to be the final girl. She's going to be the one that the media portrays as the hero of the story, like Sydney, the shadow that Sydney has cast over her family, blah, blah, blah. She has to now make it look convincing that she fought, right? Because everyone's dead. How did you like how they address that? We watch her inflicting pretty bad pain on herself to make it convincing.
Yeah, I think that that was just supposed to show about how, like, how crazy she was just to reach that level of fame.
Yeah,
and I really like that they chose to show it that way.
Me too. And I think that what is an important differentiating factor between kind of like everything else is that Jill was doing all of this, orchestrating all of this so that she could be famous like Sydney was and have the notoriety of being, and she was like nobody, and it was sort of a like a nod towards how we consume media, right? Like she literally thinks that uploading videos of her and her partner Charlie slaughtering everybody is like, nobody has to do she literally says this in her final speech, like, nobody has to be talented or do anything anymore. You just have to, do something and you'll be famous. And I think that was an important thing, is that like, it was sort of like a mirror of like what we value in society, and her surviving all of this tragedy would have made her famous, but like, it's super messed up because it's all because of her own infliction. It's a really, really great thing. What did you think about the false ending, the multiple false ending? Because we have the party, the stabathon, which we think could be the ending. Courtney Cox gets stabbed. We're like, oh my God. Then we have the after party that we think could be the ending. No. Then the ending's at the hospital. What did you feel about the final ending?
I really liked it because I was glad that Sydney did not in fact die, and yeah, but I just kind of felt like it kind of went on a little bit too long.
Yeah. I think also I like that Jill even makes that joke. She's like, what do I have to do to kill you? Because I mean, it's true. Like she, Nev Campbell, it became like drawn out to kill her. It did become sort of, was there supposed to be a different ending, or was that the ending that always was?
Oh, I think they shot like some alternate endings, but I think it was all from the same script, so I don't think it changed that much.
What about what Scream 4 was supposed to be the start of a new trilogy? Is that true?
Yeah, but what put an end to it was that Wes Craven passed away.
Oh, yeah. So that's why that stopped. Do you think they'll? So, okay, so we are in an hour, but I want to ask you, because you've seen the newest Scream. Don't give any spoilers, but I wanted to ask you, is it good? Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it. It's okay. Ranked 3. It's ranked number 3 on my list.
So what's your rank? How would you rank them?
I would put going from best to worst.
Yeah, do best to worst.
Scream 4, Scream 5, Scream 2, and Scream 3.
That, like, first of all, I feel like I'll have the same ranking as you, because other than Scream 5, I have the same order. But I think that is a testament to how good these movies are, that, like, the second one was pretty good, the third one, not great. But then the fourth and the fifth one are good. Like, that's saying something, that they have been doing something since, when did the first one come out? 1999, 98, something like that?
96.
Oh, yeah, I was 5. Yeah, that makes sense. So 1996, they've been doing these movies since 1996, and they're getting better. Like, they're still really good. And I think that's a testament to how excellent. I really do. So before we wrap, I want to ask you, Converse, you are a screenwriter, and do you ever feel like you'll write a slasher film? Is that something you'd ever delve into? Because you know so much about these things. That's something you'd ever kind of think about?
I don't think so, just because writing wise, it's not something that really interests me.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like it's also one of those things where you have to, I feel like you don't have a very like dark mind, like, do you know what I mean? And I feel like if you want to write a slasher movie, you would need like a very dark mind to be able to pull that off. But I do feel like you're such a talented screenwriter, and I see you have so much passion for film of all varieties. And do you think that watching all these movies has influenced, not just the Scream movies, but movies in general, has influenced how you write?
Yeah, because sometimes when I watch a movie, I'll think, if I see a scene I really like, I'll think of ways I can incorporate that into what I write.
Oh, I love that. So you it kind of will inspire you, like certain things will inspire you.
Yeah.
I love that. And I want to say, Converse, thank you so much. I'm so sorry I haven't gotten to see Scream 5 yet. I am going to go see it or somehow at some point when it released, because of the COVID, I don't feel comfortable going, but I can't wait to see it. And we're going to have to talk about it, because I love the Scream franchise. I grew up with it. I think that they are classic. They're in my top 3. They're my big 3, and they are just something really special. And I mean, there's been so much entertainment that's stemmed from that, right? So we have the scary movies, which are sort of homages to that. And then we also have the Scream TV show. Did you watch the Scream TV show on MTV?
I only saw the first 2 seasons.
Okay, so I've seen all the seasons. They get good and bad and good. They're kind of a mess, but like I think that so much has come from it. I think some of the Scream seasons, the first couple Scream seasons of the show are great, and then there's the newest one I didn't love because they changed all the characters and they were like, I don't know, it was kind of weird. But I think that like so much has come from the Scream movies and is continuously, and I think that's sort of a testament to how good they are, how good the franchise is. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I really like and there's also what is it? Oh, after Scream, like all the horror movies, like they started referencing other horror movies in like the dialogue and stuff like that.
In the newest Scream?
No, after Scream came out, all the horror movies started.
The meta. Oh, for sure. That I think has been adopted through like even Supernatural does that all the time. Like they break the fourth wall. They're not. I think horror movies, some of them aren't afraid to make fun of themselves, which I think was what made Scream so special. Is that they realized it was a slasher film. There's been so many slasher films, and I think whenever you're in any genre of movies, when you differentiate yourself in some way, you make the story somehow different from the next to the next to the next. I think Scream could just be a bunch of, it starts off with just a bunch of high schoolers. It's always friggin' high school kids, like always, like nah. And then you watch, it's a trope that's been done, like the handsome guys, the beautiful leading lady, like, but the beauty of Scream was that it wasn't afraid to make fun of itself and to lean into that dark humor. And I think if they carried that into the newest Scream that just released, I'm sure it's great. I think I'm really excited. I think that I'm so you would say it's your third. Wow. Okay. I'm excited. Oh my God. I love that. And also the phone call reference, call like Anna like just said, when the phone call rings and they're like, what's your favorite scary movie? I mean, it's just become such an iconic part of so much television. And I love that. And I think it's fantastic, and it's influenced so much of the horror franchise that we know. And I think that's what makes it a classic. You can say that Friday the 13th, Halloween, and, the Nightmare on Elm Street are the big three, but Scream to me is up there. I think maybe the reason why so many people think that those are the big three is because maybe they're just older, they've been around longer, but I think Scream has influenced just as much as the other three have. I really do. I think that it's a huge part of pulp culture. Pulp culture. Converse, I just want to say, I know you have to get up at like 6 a.m. I want to say thank you so much. I think you bring such insight into any time we do a podcast about any topic. Thank you for talking to me about Scream for an hour. I'm so you know me, I love talking about Scream. So Converse, is there anything else you want to share with us? Thank you for being here.
I guess I just have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I just want to know, who is your least favorite character out of all the movies?
Who's my least favorite character? Okay, that's a great question. And then I want your answer too, and then we'll wrap up because that's a great question. So my favorite character, I'll start with my favorite, is, I'm super, super obvious. It's Sidney Prescott. I love her. I always root for the final girl. If not Sidney Prescott, then it would probably be Billy Loomis. I thought he was great, and he was sinister, and I think he was or Stu. They were so iconic. Like the two of them just sold it. My least favorite character would be in Scream 3, the actress who played the parallel version of Gale Weathers. I found her to be incredibly annoying. Like I thought every scene she was in was like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the three main characters between Dewey, Gale, and Sydney, my least favorite character would be Dewey. So what about you? Favorite character and least favorite character?
Yeah, my favorite character, other than the main three, would be Kirby from Scream 4.
I love you know what? Ooh, I loved Kirby too.
Yeah.
You like Kirby better than Stu or Billy?
Oh yeah, because I really like that.
Yeah.
It was first time. It was like a female character who was just like into her as much as the
You're
the
right.
male characters.
Kirby was great, actually. Maybe I changed my answer. That was a good answer. Kirby was. I actually think that she sort of was one of the special aspects of Scream 4 that made it so good. She had good humor. She was played by Hayden Panettiere, however you say her name, and she was funny. And you're right, she was the most knowledgeable woman of horror that had ever been presented, which I love too. So your favorite? Who's your least favorite?
My least favorite is also from Scream 3, and it was the bodyguard.
Oh God. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So bad. Scream 3 really, I think was really bad. I think if Scream 3, wasn't already part of such an iconic franchise, it could have killed the whole franchise. It was so bad. But I still would rather watch Scream 3 over so many other horror movies. Does that make sense? Like I still feel like it's better than like The Hills Have Eyes or any of that garbage. So I'd still rather watch, even though I didn't like it. Just standing up against the other ones, it's the weakest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Converse, I want to say thank you so much for joining me. You are amazing. I appreciate your time so much. I appreciate the energy you put into these podcasts, and you did amazing, as I knew you would, Poop. I always believe in you because I know you were nervous and you had nothing to be nervous about. You never have anything to be nervous about. You're sensational. Thank you everybody for listening to me and Converse, our co-caster today, talk about Scream. I am Poop Widgex or Haley or PWX or whatever, and we will see you next time. Bye.